Estate of Takoda Collins. The 10-year-old was tortured and murdered by his father in 2019.
From the mother of Takoda Collins, the 10-year-old Dayton boy who died last month.
Takoda Collins' mother came from Wisconsin to attend the vigil today. She did not have custody of the boy, but says she complained to Children's Services.
What is going on, Bolo crew? And thank you so much for joining me in today's video. If you haven't already, please be sure that you are liking today's video and remembering to subscribe to my channel because it is free to show your love and support. So before we get into today's video, I did want to let you guys know that doing the research on Takoda Collins, watching the interrogation of his father, learning of all the actuals and factuals about this case really went hard on my emotions. It was really hard for me to continue to read the things without visualizing what I was reading, seeing Takoda's small body, his small frame, seeing just his small self with his bright, beautiful smile, and then imagining the heart-wrenching things that his father took him through was really a lot. And if you are sensitive to those type of things, such as torture, such as RAPE, or abuse at all, I would highly advise you to click off of this video now and go ahead and find another one of my videos that you can watch, and I will see you soon. Takoda has been described as a very bright, young, intelligent boy. He was really a light to be around despite all of the hardships that he had been through. Takoda Collins lived in Dayton, Ohio, and went to Dayton Public Schools, and that's where he got his first year of education. Takoda was the son of Robin Collins and of Al McLean. And at a really ripe age, Takoda was taken from the custody of his mother and placed into the custody of his father, in which eventually Mr. McLean was granted full custody of Takoda. And unfortunately, that would be a decision that cost Takoda his life. When we're children, when we are kids, and we just see the world and everything, we especially look up to our parents. And Takoda really looked up to his father as a father figure and did his best to please him, to make him proud, to make him happy. And that is all that you can really expect of a young boy. However, Al McLean never thought that Takoda could do enough to please him, and that is where we take a sharp left turn into the House of Horrors. Now, Al McLean was not single. Him and his girlfriend Amanda Hensey did live together, and they lived together there with Amanda's sister Jennifer Ebert. So all three adults did live in the house with two younger children, and then Takoda as the third child. On December 13th, 2019, deputies would receive a 911 call placed from Al McLean in an attempt to save Takoda's life, and the unimaginable would be discovered. It would be found that Takoda was not only beaten, but that Al, his father, had stood on top of him, forcing his full body weight onto him in an attempt to crush him. He forced him into the tub full of water, and the bystanders, which were at the time Amanda Hensey and her sister Jennifer, would say that they could hear Takoda struggling. In his final acts of humiliation, Al McLean took the leg of a broken chair and he forced it up the rectum of Takoda. As early back as 2015, from the time that Takoda was first in the school, not only was Al inflicting abuse onto Takoda, but he would also direct his girlfriend and her sister to also join in on the humiliation on 10-year-old Takoda. Felt that the abuse did exist while Takoda was in school. From the time that Takoda was removed from school at the age of 9, he would be subject to isolation in the most extreme way, being locked into a barren attic. Every day of his life was torture. Every day of his life was a living hell. Takoda was denied food. He was denied clothing. He was denied access to the bathroom. He was denied, out of all things in this world, light. He was denied light. Some days, for an entire day, Takoda would be forced to pose bizarrely as a form of punishment, and he would be forced to withstand those positions for more than 20 hours some days. If Takoda decided he needed to move, to relax, to let his arms down, or to let his feet catch his balance, he would be severely beaten and he would be monitored. He would have to stand there and do these poses in front of Al for hours at a time, while his father would sit there on the couch watching TV, cozy, having a beer, having a drink. And any moment he missed Takoda's misstep in posture, and Amanda Hinsey or her sister Jennifer saw him and Al didn't, they told him so that Takoda would receive his beating. They took away Takoda's clothing. They took away the access to the restroom. He would be left sometimes, and a lot of the time, to defecate on himself. And when that would happen, his father would become so upset and enraged that he would make Takoda eat his own feces. Eventually, Takoda would learn that that is what was expected of him from his father, and he would begin to eat his own feces himself so that he wasn't forced to do so. Now, often the perpetrator will blame the victim for every and anything. In any criminal case, perpetrator is not going to take responsibility, but to see this be the father of Takoda placing blame on his son for the things that he did to him, it's unbelievable. It's disgusting. There's no excuse for this. If Takoda had any sort of disability or learning issue, there are too many opportunities to find help out here. There is never going to be an excuse for this type of treatment towards another human being, no matter what the issue is, because there's always going to be someone, some sort of organization built for this specific thing that can help you. Coming to the day of December 13th, when the 911 call was placed by Takoda's father, after severe beatings, after water torture, after brutal RAPE, were finally too much for Takoda's 10-year-old body to withstand. Takoda will go unconscious. And rather than focusing on the current condition of Takoda, his father spends most of the time on that 911 call illustrating how terrible of a child that Takoda was and how difficult it was to parent him. At some point throughout the 911 call, the operator is instructing Al to begin CPR to see if he can revive Takoda. That's where we can hear Mr. McLean starts complaining about how bad Takoda smelled, saying it smells rotten inside of his stomach. Upon arrival, the paramedics found Al McLean, the father of Takoda, at the door, not with Takoda. Once the paramedics reached Takoda, they saw him and could see that he was clearly battered, bruised from head to toe. He was lying there alone, unresponsive, and on the floor of the living room. Paramedics tended to Takoda right away. At that time, Al's girlfriend or her sister were not at the residence. The paramedics are working to try and save Takoda's life. Al is in the background rambling on about how awful that Takoda was, a 10-year-old boy. How uncontrollable he was, how uncivilized he was. And the paramedics were pushing, hoping that Takoda was going to make it through whatever was happening to his body. Paramedics are indicating that Takoda has passed. His response to the paramedics was, "All right, I tried to get you guys here as fast as I could." Even then, paramedics were continuing to try and save Takoda's life. Resuscitation, however, was impossible. There was nothing that they could do at that point to save Takoda. And Takoda was pronounced dead at 10 years old by Dayton Children's Hospital. And the examiner noted that there were hundreds of lacerations, abrasions to Takoda's head, face, mouth, neck, chest, abdomen, buttocks, arms, hands, legs, feet. She noted extensive bruising to his entire body, including his scalp, his face, inside of his mouth, neck, chest, everywhere. You could see patterned abrasions, older scars, patterned and non-patterned, were seen all over his torso and all of his extremities. Injuries, lacerations, and bruising were also visibly externally in the rectum area. Back in 2018, Takoda was hospitalized. He was hospitalized for jumping out of the window. And I think we all understand now why Takoda was jumping out of the window. The doctor noted that what was seen on his rib cage through the previous examination was not present at the time that Takoda was seen in 2018, which means that they were within the past year. Takoda was evaluated at that time and was offered behavioral therapy, where his father, Al, declined services. The thing about it all is that the home was furnished. They had food in the refrigerator. There was running water. They had there appeared to be a security system in the home. Family photos were hung throughout the home. None of the photos featuring pets and other family members, none of them featured Takoda. Upon the findings of one of the examiners internally for Takoda's autopsy, they were able to see that the same contents that were in the feces of Takoda were the same exact contents that were in the stomach of Takoda. There was no difference in the contents. He had no bed, he had no toys, he had no clothes, he had no home, he had no love, he had no parents, he had no one. And I cannot imagine how lonely and incredibly scary that was for him every single day. The school that Takoda went to, the reason that Al McClain had took him out of the school was because they were reporting the abuse of little Takoda to the proper authorities, and they were even offering help. Like, they didn't understand what was going on. Why was Takoda always so dirty? They were offering clean clothes. They were offering a washer, a dryer, anything that they could do to help. They called CPS 17 times, and CPS dropped the ball. During the nurse's career at the school, she recalled there was a specific note for Takoda, and the note said that Takoda was to never see the school nurse. In addition to everything that we know, he would intentionally send Takoda to school when he was in school with weird haircuts, knowing that he would be made fun of by the other children. He would request daily progress reports from the teachers, and each day that it wasn't an amazing day, a glowing day, he would inflict these severe punishments on Takoda. Now, during those times where CPS would finally show up to the house, the family would already be prepared. Al would have Jennifer, the sister of his girlfriend, go into the room with Takoda and make them be quiet. And Al would just schedule a time for them to come back and see Takoda. And when they would come back, Takoda would be prepared to lie and smile in front of the CPS people in order to get them to go away. He would then blame the school for CPS showing up. He would blame Takoda for CPS showing up, and he would begin beating him, throwing him around, body slamming him, abusing the child. Every adult that was supposed to be in his corner failed him. They took away his opportunity at survival every single day that he lived. No one heard him. No one listened. No one saved him. Takoda was such a beautiful little boy. I don't understand how anyone else but a monster can do something like this. Takoda does live on in the form of a bill that seeks to reform the way that counties' children's services operate, and that is the Ohio House Bill 4. So Al McClain did receive the maximum punishment after trial and received a sentence in prison of life with the possibility of parole, which I don't think should even be an option for him. I don't care what age he is. Possibility of parole after 51 years. His girlfriend or fiance, Amanda Hensey, she was sentenced to the minimum. You guys, a minimum of 22 years in prison, with her sister, who got an 8-year sentence. These were plea deals because they decided to testify against Al in the trial. Guilty to involuntary manslaughter and child endangerment charges. I like to say that we got justice in this case, but as we all know, it never feels like justice when someone that we love has gone through something as horrific as this, and they did not live to tell their tale. They did not survive. If you are still here, by the way, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm so sorry, Takoda. I'm so sorry to the family, the friends that knew him. I'm ridden with sorrow right now for this young boy. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'd like to remind you to be on the lookout, Bolo crew, because you never know what's lurking inside the heart of someone else. I will see you babies in my next video.
Settlement has been reached between Montgomery County and the estate of Takoda Collins. The 10-year-old was tortured and murdered by his father in 2019. 2 News reporter Madeline Ashley is live in downtown Dayton with a breakdown of the settlement.
Brooke, I'm standing outside the Montgomery County Administration Building where earlier today, just hours ago, $3.25 million was agreed for a settlement for Takoda Collins' family. And while county commissioners say they know this money will not bring Takoda back, they hope it helps the family get a fresh start. The estate of Takoda Collins and Montgomery County finally reached an agreement nearly 2 years after the 10-year-old died at the hands of his father's brutal torture.
As a father of 2 young boys, I'm deeply saddened by this tragedy.
Of the $3.25 million total settlement agreed upon by probate court judge David Brannon, insurance will pay $2.75 million with a deductible of $500,000 in payment coming from Montgomery County to insurance.
This payment is our deductible, but we are hoping that in this payment and the overarching settlement that Takoda's siblings can find some peace in the wake of their brother's tragic death.
Children's Services received more than a dozen complaints about suspected abuse of Takoda leading up to the boy's death, but he remained in his father's care. Al-Mutahan McLean was sentenced to life in prison last month for killing his son. Now county commissioners vowing to fix county child services policies and procedures, ensuring what happened to Takoda never happens again.
All of us are committed to the safety and protection of the children right here in our community. Our child welfare caseworkers were deeply affected by these events, and we will continue to meet all requirements and remain engaged in continual improvement concerning child welfare.
Now that a settlement has been reached, county leaders hopeful this helps Collins' family heal in some small way.